This presentation contains copyrighted material under the Educational Affairs Exemption to the U.S. Copyright Law. This is the brand new Psychology 9990 syllabus, and we're going to first take a look at Piliavin in 1969 study. Okay, so we just first look at the background, and why we go over this simply is not just because we want to go why Piliavin and Rodin Piliavin decided to do a field study on this idea, but this really was, at the time, at least in New York, a big issue that was going on of how can somebody allow a murder to take place without anybody, saying anything. And then this would then go to the labs, and then eventually into the field to obviously increase ecological validity. So back in 1964 in Queens, New York, Kitty Genovese, she unfortunately was murdered on her way home from work. A guy by the name of Herman Mosley, there's other stuff with him if you want to take a look at independently. But he caught up with her on her way home from work. He stabbed her in the back. Some people say 2 times, some people say 4 times. And apparently somebody in a window nearby opened up the window and said, "Hey, what's going on down there?" And he ran away, back to his car. About 10, some people say 20 minutes later on, nobody showed up. There's no cops. There's no one coming around to help her. And as Kitty Genovese is basically laying, still screaming for help at the bottom of the stairwell in a different building, he found her. He then again continues to stab her another so-called 14 times. People even say that he raped her, and he also stole her money, about $50 at that time. And this whole thing took place about a half hour. Now, some people say that no one did anything. Nobody called police at all during that time. No one, tried to step in. Apparently there was somebody at the top of the staircase where she was that they opened the door, and they also did not do anything. But it was clear that when they were investigating this, that 38 people eventually, they were witness, or they heard what was going on here. And none of them intervened simply because what they said, they did not want to become involved. And this led to a huge wave of research into what became known as a bystander effect. Darley and Latané, 2 big names with this, conducted a couple different lab studies. And they were looking into this idea of diffusion responsibility. They had a couple ones. This one first takes a look at, in the idea of Milgram, a tape recording where somebody on the other end of a tape recording was having a seizure, an epileptic fit, and they had this whether they had one person, in the booth and a couple people in the booth, and what they found that when one person was in the booth by him or herself, they, for the most part, would go and look for help. When there were more than one people, that number of people who went to help severely dropped. As noted on this screen, went alone about 80%. When you had 3 people, about 60%. But when you take a look at 4 or more people, only less than a third of the people helped. And what they thought that, there's some issue going on here. How can a large number of people, even 4 or more people, how can nobody go and help? And they're diffusing this responsibility. They're looking to other people to come in and to take that initiative to do something first. And here you see a couple things that Darley and Latané said. That first you have to notice the event is going on, obviously. And a big thing is to interpret the event as an emergency. You also have to assume personal responsibility for it. You have to decide if there is in a way that you can help, and then certainly you have to implement the decision to help itself. Later on, Latané and Rodin did another lab experiment where apparently somebody fell out of a chair, and they want to see, fell out of a chair in another room. They want to go see if they can find help. And again, this was even reminiscent of the first study, not even mentioned on this PowerPoint, but in the first one where there was smoke coming through a accompanying door, and when there was one person in the room, again, same results, they would go looking for help. When there were a few people in the room, they pretty much just stayed there, going like this, trying to move the smoke away from them. But what they saw here is that these studies lacked ecological validity. Certainly, as a grade A student that you are, you should go back and take a look at the differences between a field study and a lab study. Also keep in mind that the task that the people were doing, was it really true to life? And probably the biggest thing here was that the victims were not in sight. And so from these Piliavin, who are a husband and wife team, and Rodin, they wanted to take this to a more natural setting, which New York subway proved to be the best part. Now, this study itself, the aim was to investigate diffusion of responsibility. Okay, they want to see, does it apply to multiple situations, or other factors that might influence somebody's helping behavior. Okay, specifically, they wanted to change some of the variables. They want to say, okay, if we can see somebody here, okay, what type of stranger, what type of stooge who will be playing this role in the experiment will be more likely to get help or not receive help. And so they had a few different things here. They had the type of model. Was the model the victim, type of victim, was the victim an ill victim, guy carrying a cane, or was he a drunk victim in a little brown paper bag? The race of the victim, was the person white or was the person black? The effect of modeling, so if somebody falls over and nobody helps them up, what if a model jumps in? Again, this model was a stooge as well, but if they would go over and model the helping behavior, would then other people follow? And then certainly the biggest thing they wanted to take a look at was group size. Judging by what they found in their lab studies, that the larger the group size, the less help. So they wanted to see if this took place in the same New York City subway environment. The hypotheses, you had two of them here. Number one, according to the study, an individual will be more inclined to help somebody of their own race. And number two, help will be offered more and in a quicker fashion to the cane victim compared to the drunk victim. And this is because they believe that people who are responsible for their own plight will receive less help. Okay, the cane victim, you never know why he's walking with a cane. He is more deserving of help, is what they thought, compared to the drunk guy. Said, hey, he did this to himself. It's his fault that he is drunk at this moment, and why does he deserve my help? So that's really it for video one. A short wrap up. Number one, these are some of the review questions that you will be responsible for. Okay, keep them all together. There's, I believe, a dozen or so together in the end, but make sure that you have a running piece of paper of all these. Okay. Number one, the Piliavin study was conducted as a field study. Okay. Letter A, identify two strengths of a field study methodology. Letter B, identify two weaknesses of a field study methodology. Again, this is just general specific stuff, but you have to keep going over and over and over with methodology in order to do well on this final exam. Okay. Now, for questions number 2 and number 3, you need to go back to the actual research article. Okay. The 1969 study by Piliavin, wrote in Piliavin, these two questions here is where you can find the information for that. Okay. Number 2, Piliavin et al. Noted that the subway study was done in a field was different from previous lab studies because of 2 reasons. Okay, describe these 2 reasons, and that you can see is a 4-pointer. So it would be like two pointers put together. Okay. For number 3, describe the following terms, and this is possible 6 points. So again, there's 3 of them here, each one for 2 points. So make sure that you provide enough information to get not just the 1 point, but enough info to get that 2nd point for each one of these. So first part here, diffusion of responsibility, pluralistic ignorance, and then empathy, altruism, model. And that will be it for video number 1, and we will see you next time for video number 2.